Hi, I'm Judith Monroe, and this is my studio. And in this video, I'm going to show you some of the prints that I have made in my Caffenol bathroom darkroom. And I'm going to share some of the things that I've learned in that process. So this is my pinhole processing Caffenol baby binder because it's small and cute. And so I keep notes, sometimes better notes, sometimes less good, but about the Caffenol process in here. And so you can see that I've got a development time, and I've discovered what my best time is in this 4 to 5 minute range. The stop is a 10 to 30 second, and I've learned over time. At first I thought 48 hours would be good in the salt fix, but I have learned, and I'll show you how I learned, 72 hours is really a much better time. So the first thing I want to say is it's really, really important when you're doing this kind of, especially experimental alternative process, kind of a thing, is to keep notes. So like this was back in August of 2020 when I first started this project, and you can see I noted what kind of paper, pearl, bright sun was my lighting, and then my exposures, 60-second exposure, 2-minute Caffenol development. So I really had no idea what I was going to get, and based on what I was seeing, I adjusted. So I went from 60 seconds to 90 seconds to 3 minutes. You can see I wasn't changing my development time. And then here I decided to stick with the same exposure but increase my development time. And I did the same thing. You can see wind blur flowers. So I was kind of doing this comparison, seeing which was going to be better for me as far as the development time. And then I started to keep notes about the fixer process too. And so these are the prints, and you can see, so these stains right here, so this is a negative, a paper negative, and these stains are from it not being in the fixer long enough. And I didn't write it down, but I can tell you those stains weren't there immediately. It looked pretty good at first, and then these stains came up afterwards. And so this was one of the better exposures. This was a 4-minute development, and I was writing the numbers of the print on the back, so that I would be able to later then match the numbers on my notes with the numbers on the back of the print. And so this is what it looked like when I didn't really know, this is what testing looks like. Sometimes it sort of sucks. But then, oh my gosh, look, I got a really good negative. So this is a pretty good negative. But again, I was having some fixer problems, and I hadn't quite figured it out. But it wasn't so bad that I couldn't use it for a contact print. So sometimes, even though things aren't perfect, we can still move forward. And so here's my contact printing, the directions actually that I've written out for my students. The not the most current probably, but and then what I did. So I did 10-second intervals on my first one, and then 1-second intervals. So I was getting a ton of light. So this was meant that this was getting 10 seconds and another 10 seconds, and progressively, so probably 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 seconds here, and it was very dark and very black. And that meant it was getting way too much light. So I went from 10-second intervals to 1-second intervals, and even that was too much. And so from there, I went to a 1-second exposure, wondering if how 1 second would do. And so you can see This is a contact print, and so this was made from this negative here. So this was laid on top, light shone through, and I have a couple videos on that, and you can see me making this print. And so even 1 second was too long. And then I also have notes on the back of afterwards they were very curly and how I was trying to flatten them. Just Books is better. I tried some heat, which made things worse, actually. So experiments. But then you can see I was doing better. I was still struggling with some fixer issues. And working, and then I started to get better. So a much shorter exposure time. So I actually had to go to like fractions of a second, which is super hard to control. So half a second and 5 minutes in the developer. So one of the things that we can do in the darkroom, and it's going to be hard to see and things are fixer stained, but I'll show you in a couple others, is we can control the contrast of an image, so the lights and the darks, with our exposure times and our development times. And so here's where I was starting to get more of an idea of how to handle the fixer, different ingredients in the fixer, so my students get the best, most updated. So don't put bleach in your fixer. That's one thing I learned. So here's where it started to get better. So this was my exposure where I did, I'm looking back at my notes here. This is the contact print. A half a second in of exposure, because I was using a big light that was all I had, and then a 5 minute development time. And then because I'm flicking on a room light, less light. I was trying to do less, and so less exposure time. So I'm brightening up my highlights here. This is less light, and then to keep darks dark, oh, I didn't even really. I just kept the 5 minute development time. I could have gone a little bit longer, but you can see where now I'm like starting to get something that looks pretty good, especially considering this still came from this pinhole negative. So, and I'm going to put these in here. And the experimentation went on. So now I've got some more negatives that I made, some still with fixer issues. I was also experimenting with times in my pinhole camera in the shade, and learning that I needed to spend a lot of time. I think that this is like a 20-minute exposure shooting with the camera. And again, fixer issues. That's like the bane of my existence with this stuff. Though I can make it work. I think I was still struggling here. But here now I can show you some beautiful kind of things. So a little bit of a fixer issue, but you can see the difference between exposure. So I was playing with more and less exposure, and this probably looks like about the same development time. I'd have to look at my notes. The watering can, yeah, they both had the same development time. And then this, and you can see even sometimes the not very good negatives can do some kind of interesting things. I kind of like, I've never been a person that wants perfection. if I want to get a super sharp, perfect image, I'm not going to be using Caffenol and a pinhole camera. So some of this stuff is kind of enchanting. So less exposure, probably a longer development, and I'm starting to get, look at this detail, I'm starting to get actual, you know, detail. And this is one of the things that you can see the difference. So these were actually made from a lumen print, which is back here somewhere. So this, I used this lumen print for a negative to test it out. So this was made, and this has been several months, so even though it's been protected from the light, it is slowly fading because this has not been fixed. It was made by putting leaves on top of the paper out in the sunlight, and so it created a negative image, and then I was able to make positives. And this is definitely where I used less time and longer a longer exposure, a longer development, my bad. Less time, so shorter exposure, longer development time to create an image that has more contrast. So it's possible to have certain amount of control and in this whole process, and to get some really cool and fun things. And the most important thing that I have learned, I also just did a test, and I don't have those prints, those contact prints ready yet. Instead of using my overhead bathroom light, I used a small night light, which then, instead of having to like flick the light switch on and off for a fraction of a second, gave me a lot more control. So I can have an 8-second or 7-second exposure, which means that I have a lot more control over it. So I'm excited to see those. And I did play with like my notes. These are some of the negatives I did. An 8-second exposure and a 6-minute development, an 8-second exposure and 7-minute development. Of course, also, this is 6 prints going through the Caffenol, and the Caffenol is starting to die at that point. So the Caffenol chemistry is only good maximum 6 prints. Somewhere in here I did an experiment with that too. But these are just a few of the things that I've learned. I hope that you find it helpful, and I'll be showing you soon what the contact prints from these negatives look like. So I hope you found that information helpful in your own exploration of the pinhole camera Caffenol process. And I will be posting more, the reveal for my latest contact prints soon. And as always, it would be really helpful to me if you would like, subscribe, and comment. Until next time, bye.